Howdy, readers. I'm Jason. This is Chapter and Verse, and this is my first video in almost a month. I think this has been the longest stretch that I've had since making a video. There have been many reasons for that, but I thought that a ramble video, a ramble with the yarn, would be a good way of getting back on the horse, back in the saddle, if you will. So, I've got a few things that I want to chat with you guys about. But first, before I get to that, I thought I would just let you know what I've been reading. Because I have been reading. I still am not done with my March of the Mammoth book, the Hilary Mantel novel. I didn't get Brendan finished by Frederick Buechner. And this is mostly to do with the coronavirus, right? So I've been finding it difficult to read with everything that's been going on. And of course, since COVID exploded here in the United States, there's been all kinds of other shit going on as well, right? Persistent police brutality, protests, etc., etc. And I just kind of needed to check out mentally for a bit. The novels that I had been reading are glorious, but they were really taxing emotionally and intellectually. And I needed something that was reasonably mindless, right? Some good popcorn, really good quality popcorn reading. And today I finished Hawke by Ted Bell. And this is a mass market. It's the first in a series that I've had on my shelf since we lived in Missoula. And and I just have never gotten around to it. And I tell you what, if you occasionally need a kind of a just mindless adventure story, right? That's got thriller elements to it and mystery elements to it and kind of swashbuckling elements to it, but that you don't have to think about. You can just kind of just check out and lose yourself in the story. This is perfect for that. I've read quite a lot of what I'll, again, call popcorn fiction in my life. Dan Brown, Michael Crichton, Clive Cussler. This is as good as the very best of it. It even managed to surprise me at times, which is no small feat. It made me laugh out loud on more than one occasion. And it's a really thrilling book with a lot of kind of plot threads, and it does a really fine job of kind of weaving all those things together by the end. There's some wonderful set pieces. He's really, really good at writing action, which is exceptionally difficult to do. I still remember when I read Hannibal by Thomas Harris. There's a gun battle in that book, and it felt like a gun battle in molasses. I mean, it had no energy, it had no momentum. And Ted Bell is really, really good at writing action scenes that really move and pop and sing. And this was an exceptionally fun novel, and it was exactly what I needed right now. So, having finished it, I'm going to dive back into the Hilary Mantel book and try to wrap up my adventures with Thomas Cromwell. But if you're looking for something that is really, really diverting and just well done, well crafted, this would be a good choice. I fully plan on continuing with this series. I want to say there's like a dozen books in the series. So that's the first thing. Second thing is I wanted to do a couple of shout outs of reasonably new channels. One brand new channel and one channel that had been around, I think, in the past and had been on hiatus for quite some time, and she's come back. But anyway, so those two channels. The first one is Karen Evans, and Karen is somebody who I don't even fully remember how she appeared on my radar. She had started commenting on some videos of mine, but it was pretty recently. She wasn't commenting on videos from sort of way back when. or what have you. But I would say in the last 4 or 5 months, I would see comments from Karen, and yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember if I encouraged her to start making videos. I want to say I did, but that might not be true. I might just be giving myself more credit for something than I should. But anyway, I mean, she decided to start making videos, and her videos are absolutely wonderful. And more than that, her personality is just fabulous. Kelly and I both have started really becoming friends with Karen. Karen is one of the handful of people who has been participating on a pretty regular basis in mine and Lukash's Wednesday night film club, which has been marvelous. Kelly and I have been communicating with Karen quite a bit on Voxer, and Kelly more so than me, but yeah, her channel is wonderful, and her personality is wonderful, and she's got a very cute dog, and yeah, I mean, it seems like most of BookTube are dog people. I'm not sure why that is, but it is. Those of us who are cat people, we are small, but we are fierce and mighty. But yeah, so if you haven't checked out Karen's channel yet, absolutely do. She's wonderful. I will leave a link below. And then the second channel I wanted to bring your attention to is Dario, and his channel is Motley Reads. And yeah, it's pretty new. I mean, I want to say he started his channel in the midst, or like maybe right at the beginning of the kind of quarantine period. And when I first discovered him, I don't remember which video it was, but it was one of his first 2 or 3 videos. And he was talking about Balkans literature from the Balkans, and how it doesn't seem to get a lot of notice here on BookTube. And I sang out immediately on that video in the comments field that I would love to hear more about Balkans literature here on BookTube. I am woefully underversed in it, having only read one or two books from that part of the world. The one that's popping to mind right away is what is it? Spring Flower, Spring Frost, I think, by Ismail Kadari. I might be butchering that name. I am deeply excited to hear more about work from that part of the world, literature from that part of the world. So, yeah, he's very cool, very chill, and he's one of these booktubers like Steve Donahue, like Jack from the Rambling Raconteur, like Jason Harrigan, who he doesn't need to edit. I mean, he can just turn on the camera and go. And I always find that really, really admirable. I can't do that. I mean, that's just a gift that I don't have. And yeah, so if you're looking for another really smart, really sophisticated booktuber who's got tastes that run, I won't say afoul of what we see sort of all over BookTube, but tastes that run contrary to the norm. Yeah, that's maybe a good way of describing his channel, Motley Reads, and I will leave a link to his channel down below as well. So there's a couple of shout outs to begin. The next couple of things I wanted to talk about are some potential closings, right? So a few weeks back, maybe a month ago, I read in The Guardian some alarming news, really alarming news, that the Globe Theatre in London is facing the possibility, because of coronavirus and what it has done to the tourism industry, and people just simply being wary of getting on airplanes, which I totally understand. I'm not planning on getting on one soon, and yeah, Kelly and I had a trip to England and Scotland planned for next year. That's not going to happen. But anyway, the Globe depends largely on the tourism trade, on people coming to England and saying, you know what, I want to see a play in the theater that is a kind of reinvention or reimagining of Shakespeare's original theater. When I went to England in 2004, I saw 2 different performances of Much Ado About Nothing at the Globe, so I fully understand where they're coming from. But because the virus has hit travel and tourism so hard, the Globe is looking at the possibility of closing permanently, which is just a tragedy. If that were to happen, that would be a genuine tragedy in the arts, right? In the world of drama and literature. It's the kind of thing that can't be allowed to happen. Now, I don't know if there's a GoFundMe page or anything like that has started for it, but I mean, shit. How many of you watching this video right now would be willing to donate a tiny bit of money, even just $5, to keeping the Globe solvent, right? To keeping the Globe going? I would be willing to donate well more than $5 for that. That theater and what it represents are so important to me. I was just stunned by that news. And then this morning, I read also in The Guardian that the Jane Austen House Museum, right, the place where Jane Austen completed her books and lived the last years of her life, is facing the exact same thing. The possibility of closing permanently, of closing forever, just simply because the tourism trade has just dried up. It's absolutely dried up because of the virus. So I will leave links to both of these Guardian articles, the one about the Globe and the one about the Jane Austen House Museum, below. And if any of you watching have heard anything about any kind of crowdsourced funding to help keep these places going, by all means, let me know in the comments. It could very well be that this is something that's already going on, and I haven't heard about it yet. So if you know of anything along those lines, by all means, let me know in the comments, and I will make sure to make another video letting people know where they can donate money to help keep these places open and alive as cultural centers, because we need them, and we probably need them more than we realize. The last thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is more personal, and I struggled with trying to decide where to begin the story, I suppose. And I suppose I will start at the ending. So last night, after Kelly and I watched some BookTube, and I put on one of Matthew from Mayberry Book Club's Winnie the Pooh videos for Kelly, because she loves just listening to those at night, and I do as well. But I had some reading to do. I had to finish Hawke. So I put on one of those videos for her so she could kind of listen to Matthew reading that story as she was going to sleep. And I went out in the living room, and before I started reading, I grabbed my iPad, and I don't know why, but it occurred to me that that I should look up an old friend of mine from Missoula, because even after we left Missoula in at the end of 2010, he and I would talk on the phone every once in a while, every 3 or 6 months or something like this, for a handful of years, and then we lost touch. And I think what it was that I would try calling him, and the line was disconnected. And after a number of times trying to do that, I stopped trying, and I got busy with other things, etc., and I figured that he was at a pretty advanced age, and he had been in poor health for some time. And so I just figured that he had been moved to a nursing home or something like this, and at that point, I mean, the ball's really in his court to remain in touch, because there's no way for me to know where he is or what's going on, but anyway, so it occurred to me to look up my old friend Jeffrey Hill from Missoula. And I learned last night, I found a couple of different obituaries for him. Very plain Jane obituaries. Nothing at all in there about his life, about who he was, about his personality and his passions and interests. And he died on Valentine's Day last year, 2019, in a nursing home. I didn't say what the cause of death was or anything like this. He was 80 or 81. It was tough to learn that, and I half expected it when I set about Googling him last night and trying to find out where he was, what had happened to him. Like I said, I mean, he was old, he was in poor health, but I just wanted to, with this video, give him more of a tribute, I suppose, than the obituaries did. Because again, like, you read that and it's just data. Here's his name, here's his age, he died on such and such day at such and such nursing home. And that's it. That's all. There's nothing of him in that at all. And Jeffrey didn't really have anyone. He had kids, but his kids were far away from him. He was not in close touch with them anymore. I don't know how long it had been since he'd seen him, from the last time I talked to him anyway. But I just wanted to give him more of a tribute than he got there, because he deserved that. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my history with Jeffrey. And so when Kelly and I lived in Missoula, we both worked at Barnes & Noble. And I was primarily a cashier. I loved cashiering at Barnes & Noble. I would always take books up with me and keep them kind of under the counter. And if somebody came through my line, and so let's say I had some Tim O'Brien under the counter. Somebody came through my line, they were buying a nonfiction book about the Vienna Amour. I would pull up this novel and recommend it to them. And I would hand sell books like that all the time. I loved cashiering at Barnes & Noble. Well, Jeffrey was a regular at our store. And he was just such a sweet old man. And I won't lie, I mean, the first couple of interactions I had with him, maybe even more than the first couple, I would get slightly irritated sometimes with him because he just loved to kind of natter. And he always wrote a check. He always wrote a check. And, and this is me being just young and stupid and kind of callous and naive. But his handwriting was so slow. I don't know what was wrong with him. I don't know why he wrote so slowly, why his writing was so labored. But again, right, like the young, stupid, callous Jason would sometimes grow impatient with how long it was taking him to write a check. And, I'd have to call for backup and this, that, and the other thing. And that eventually changed. And it didn't take long, I'm grateful to say. I eventually saw the error of my ways, I suppose, in feeling that impatience for Jeffrey. And I grew to be really charmed by him. He was, like I said, just a sweet, sweet old man. And when I saw him coming, like once I had kind of gotten over that hump of being, the young, callous, stupid guy who was just impatient for him to get his check written and signed, as soon as I saw him coming, I would just ring the bell for backup without even looking. And sometimes there'd be nobody behind him, and my coworker would come up and they'd be like, essentially, what the fuck, why did you call for backup? And I was like, can you just hang out for a while? Thank you. And they would, and then eventually other customers would come because I knew it was going to take a while for Jeffrey to get checked out. But he always came in. He came in multiple times a week. Was just a passionate reader. Just a lovely old man. And he and I eventually kind of became chummy, right? Just kind of friends. He would always come through my line if I was working, and I could tell that he really liked me. And I really grew to like him. And then one day, Jeffrey invited me over to his house, which wasn't actually a house. It was a little tiny studio apartment there in Missoula. And he invited me over to talk about books. And I was so flattered and kind of just taken off guard by it, caught off guard by it, that I had to say yes. And so I went over to Jeffrey's apartment. And Jeffrey's apartment, almost the entirety of it, was taken up with a kind of chest level platform, really. And I think he stored stuff underneath it, but he had a train set that he had been working on for God knows how many years. And he just loved it. He loved trains, and he loved his train set. And again, I mean, I was just charmed by it. And he had a little tiny patio that was just big enough for like a little tiny table and 2 chairs, and that was it. I mean, we were crammed in there. And he had bought some crackers, and he had bought some incredibly cheap caviar, presumably from Walmart or Target or something like this. And we went out on his back porch, and we talked about books, and we talked about politics, and we ate cheap caviar on crackers. And I will never forget that day. He won me totally over with that, I don't know, 2 hours, what it was that we spent talking about books. And and from then on out, we would go out and have lunch once a month at a Chinese place, and just talk about books and talk about life. And we became pretty close, pretty good friends in that time. And he actually gave me a copy of, and he had I think a box of them, and he would, when he would get close with somebody, when he would make a good close friend, he would give them a copy of his favorite book. And he gave me a copy of his favorite book. And I have still not read it, right? But after learning of his death last night, I decided this is the year to finally read Jeffrey's favorite book. And this year, it's Louis L'Amour's memoir, Education of a Wandering Man. And like I said, it's time. It's time, finally, to read this book. And I'll just show you the inscription that he wrote on there. And you can actually tell, looking at his handwriting, how labored it is, how long it took him to even just write these words on this page. And he wrote, to Jason, a very good friend, a wonderfully eloquent man, and a great teacher. Your friend, Jeffrey K. Hill, November 18th, 2010. And that was about a month before Kelly and I moved from Missoula to Casper. So it might have been the last time that I saw him, actually. But anyway, so that's just a few words about Jeffrey, my old friend Jeffrey. He was an old liberal. He liked Barack Obama more than I did. I think we both liked Obama about the same at the beginning, and I grew pretty quickly disenchanted. And it took Jeffrey longer to grow disenchanted with President Obama. Jeffrey loved borscht. I've still never had borscht, but boy, he would talk about borscht when we'd be out at a Chinese restaurant. I don't know how we'd get on the subject, but he loved beets and he loved borscht. So anyway, that's just a little bit about Jeffrey Hill. I look forward to seeing him one day again. I hope it's not for a good long time, but I do look forward to that day. Anyway, I promise not to let quite so long go by between videos down the road. I've got some other plans for videos to make here soon, so it shouldn't be too long, you guys, before you see me again. In the meantime, let me know how you're doing in the comments below, and again, let me know if you know of anything being done to save the globe and to save the Jane Austen House Museum. And I will talk to you guys again very, very soon. Adios.